Let me tell you what actually doubled my self-publishing income, because it is probably not what you're focused on right now. Most people who are building a self-publishing business on Amazon are thinking about evergreen books, books that sell all year round, books that stay relevant no matter what time of year it is. And that makes complete sense. It is a totally logical way to approach it. I do that myself, but there is a whole other layout that changes how you plan your publishing year, and that is time. Some books don't sell evenly across the year. They sell in these concentrated, predictable bursts, and if you plan for that, it can become one of your most reliable income patterns that you can build into your self-publishing business. I started doing this deliberately a few years ago, and the difference that it made to my income was not subtle. I want to go over how it works, show you some real examples from Amazon, and then give you a way that you can actually map this out for yourself. Now, if you are new here, my name is Caroline. I'm a self-publisher who has been creating and selling books on Amazon for over 7 years, and on this channel, I show you how to do the same. So what I'm talking about is seasonal publishing. Publishing books that are designed to target a particular time of year, a holiday, an event, a season, and that sell in intense, predictable bursts because of it. It sounds simple, and it is, but the way that you plan for it is what makes the difference between it working really, really well and not working at all. When I say seasonal publishing, I don't just mean Christmas. I mean the full calendar. Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, the summer holiday period, New Year's. Amazon's shoppers do not behave the same way across the year. Their buying patterns shift based on what's happening in their lives, and certain types of books ride those shifts really hard. Think about how you shop on Amazon yourself. In October, you're probably not on there searching for Valentine's Day gifts, but in January, you absolutely are. In July, nobody is looking for a Halloween activity book, but by September, it is one of the most searched categories on Amazon. The windows are real, and so is the drop-off either side of them. What that means for self-publishers is that a well-made seasonal book, published at the right time, in a niche where there is genuine demand, can outsell an evergreen book many times over during its window. Then the next year, it does it again, and that part of it is what makes this so powerful. You make it once and it comes back around every single year. Let me show you what this actually looks like in practice, because I think seeing some real data and some real books is what's going to make this click. This is a toddler Halloween coloring book, and I want to show you this one specifically because it's a good example of how targeted you can get with seasonal publishing. This isn't just a Halloween book. It's a Halloween coloring book, but it's not just a Halloween coloring book. It's a Halloween coloring book for toddlers. That is a very specific buyer, and that buyer shows up at a very specific time of the year. What's interesting about Halloween as a season is how early it starts. Parents are thinking about Halloween activities for their kids from late August. By September, the search volume is already building, and by October, it's at full speed. Let's take a look at this graph. This is a graph that shows the historical sales data for the past 3 years. You can clearly see where the sales spike at Halloween. On this graph, it is the lower numbers on the graph because here we're recording bestseller ranks, and the lower the bestseller rank, the more books that this person is selling. So we're looking at these drops when I say spikes, but these are the times of the year when this book's bestseller rank drops really low, meaning it's starting to sell more and more books. And you can clearly see where the sales spike at Halloween. Every October, the sales increase, the bestseller ranks drop. So this year, the bestseller rank drops right down to around 2,000. The next year, the same thing drops down to around 2,000 of a bestseller rank. Last year, it dropped right down to around 1,000 bestseller rank. And what that means is that for the month of October, when the bestseller rank drops to around 1,000, this book is selling around 2,000 copies that month. But look what happens in November. It's like someone flips a switch. The sales drop off almost immediately after Halloween, and the book goes back to doing very little for the rest of the year. But that is not a problem. That window was enough. And the following year, the same thing happens again and again and again. Same book, same window, same results. This book is a Christmas activity book for kids. It's an I Spy activity books. It is a fairly simple book. It's not complicated to make. Doesn't have a huge number of pages. In fact, this book only has 40 pages in it. But if you look at this book's sales rank history, it's pretty unremarkable for most of the year. It's ticking along, it's not losing money, but it's not doing anything special either. And then October hits. The sales rank starts dropping. The book is selling more and more. And by November, it's moving fast. In December, its bestseller rank is right down around the 200 mark. Last year in 2025, the bestseller rank got right down to around 75, making it one of the best-selling books across the whole of Amazon. With a bestseller rank of 75, this book sells around 10,000 to 11,000 copies over that month between November and December. The royalties for that are huge. And then January comes and it drops right back down again. The spike is so consistent year after year that you can almost set a calendar reminder for it. Now, here's the thing to notice. This book didn't need to be a bestseller all year to be worth publishing. That one seasonal window makes this whole thing profitable. And if you have 5 or 6 books like this, doing this across different times of the year, you're building something that actually has structure to it. Now, this one is a little bit different from the other two I've shown you. This is a guided prompt journal called Tell Me Your Story, Mum. And it's a really good example of a seasonal book that doesn't have just one window. It has several windows because this is a very giftable book. Someone buys it for their mum, for their grandmother, a mother figure in their life, and people buy gifts for the women they love at multiple points throughout the year. Mother's Day is the obvious one. You can see the sales spike around that time is significant. So around beginning to mid-April is where the sales start, and then they drop and drop and drop right into May. Each year, every year in April, the same thing happens. But this book also sells really well at Christmas. You can see the bestseller rank dropping in November, starting to sell more and more into December, where it peaks and then starts increasing again in January. So you can see that bestseller rank dropping every Christmas during that gift buying period. What that means in practice is that this book rarely goes fully quiet. It has peaks and troughs like any seasonal title, but the troughs are shallower because there is always another gifting occasion coming up. During the Mother's Day buying period in April and May, this book's bestseller rank gets right down to around 50, and some years it's even gotten down to be the number 2 book on Amazon. But when it does have a bestseller rank of around 50, this book sells around 14,000 copies, and it brings in this self-publisher royalties of around $70,000 for that month. It is just crazy what happens when you create something that is highly targeted and highly giftable. And that is the whole thing about highly giftable books. They don't live and die by a single season. If you can publish something that genuinely works as a gift, you're building in multiple windows from the very beginning. It's a different way of thinking about seasonal publishing, but it's just as deliberate. The buyers are there, they're actively looking. The question is whether your book is there to meet them. Now, here's the part where I want to give my honest opinion on why people actually don't benefit from seasonal books, even when they do decide to try it out. The timing of publishing is pretty much everything, and most people get it wrong. If you're publishing a Christmas book in November, you're already late. By the time Amazon indexes your book, by the time it starts getting any traction at all, the window is basically over. I made this mistake myself in the early days. You put in all that work, you upload the book, and it doesn't do what you expected. Not because it's a bad book, but because it didn't have time to establish itself before that spike hit. The general rule that I work to is this: I want a seasonal book live on Amazon at least 2 to 3 months before the season that it's targeting. For Christmas, I'm aiming to have books up by September, ideally earlier. For Valentine's Day, I want them live by November. For back to school books, they need to be up by May or June. That sounds like a really long lead time, and it is, but here's what that runway does for you. It gives the book time to get reviewed, time to accumulate some sales history, time for Amazon to understand what the book is and who to show it to. And by the time the season actually arrives and buyers are actively searching, your book isn't brand new anymore. It's established, and Amazon is much more likely to surface it in the search results. If you're launching the week before Christmas, you're not competing with other publishers who did the same thing. You're competing with books that have been live for months and already have reviews, already have sales history and keyword ranking. That's not a fair fight. The other thing I want to talk about is the research side of things, because seasonal doesn't automatically mean profitable. You still need to look at whether the demand is actually there and what the competition looks like. The way that I think about it is this: I want to find seasonal niches where there are clearly buyers. You can see this in search volume and in sales ranks of existing books, but where competition isn't so saturated that a new book has no chance. Mother's Day is a really interesting one because it's big enough to have real demand, but the book categories within it are less crowded than, say, something like Christmas. Same with Father's Day. Easter is another one that gets decent traffic but doesn't have the same level of competition as Christmas or Halloween. And then there are smaller, more specific seasonal moments that most publishers overlook entirely. Things like first day of school books, end of year teacher gifts, St. Patrick's Day, things like summer reading journals. Each of those has a window, has buyers, searching, and usually has very manageable competition. The key is doing the research before you commit to making the book, not after. Look at what is already selling in that niche. Check the bestseller ranks. Look at how many reviews the top sellers have and work out whether there's room for you to come in and compete with them. So let me give you something practical to take away from this, which is how I usually map out my publishing calendar around seasonal titles. I start at the beginning of the year and I look at the full 12 months. I pick 3 or 4 seasonal targets that I want to publish that year, not everything. I'm not trying to hit every single holiday. I'm picking the ones where I can see the best combination of demand, manageable competition, and realistic lead time given when I'm doing the planning. And then I work backwards. If I want a Halloween book live by August, then I need to start creating that in June at the latest. If I want a Christmas book live by September, then I'm working on that book during the middle of the year. I add those creation start dates to my calendar alongside the target publish dates, and that becomes my seasonal publishing plan for the year. What I have found is that having 3 or 4 seasonal books on rotation, each of them with their annual spike, gives me a much more predictable income pattern than just publishing evergreen titles alone. The evergreen books are still very, very important. They're a consistent baseline, but the seasonal books are what create those income peaks that can make a really big difference to your overall numbers. And the best part about it is that once those books are live, they come back every year. You do the work once, the book does sit there doing very little for most of the year, and then that season, that event or occasion comes around and it starts making money again. That is a genuinely good use of your publishing efforts. I want to leave you with one thought before I go. A lot of the self-publishing advice out there is focused on finding evergreen niches, topics that sell year round, books with consistent demand, and that is very sound advice. I'm not arguing against it. But if you're only thinking about evergreen, you're leaving a really meaningful income stream on the table. The seasonal calendar is actually very predictable. The buyers show up at the same time every single year. The search volume spikes on schedule. And if your book is there, established, it's ranking, with some reviews behind it, you're in a really good position to benefit from that every single time. Plan it properly, give yourself enough lead time, do the research before you start creating, and publish for the season, not during it. If you're not already publishing seasonally, I'd encourage you to try it with just one book at first. Pick one season that's coming up in the next few months and see what happens. One book should be enough to show you how different results can be. And if you did enjoy this video, YouTube thinks that you might like these ones too, so please go check them out to learn more about self-publishing your own low and medium content books on Amazon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.